Hi, welcome to Culture of Paint. On this episode, we're going to take a look at what's caught our eye over the last couple of weeks in the miniatures painting world. For our main segment, we're joined by a very special guest, Mike McVey, and we're going to close out the show, as normal, taking a look at what the hashtag PaintCultists have been up to. Now, Culture of Paint's aimed at a mature audience, so we might talk about adult themes and use explicit language. So let's talk about paint. And we are back on. The chat's in there. Loads of the chats in there. Love to see familiar names and some new ones. Hello, folks. So I'm Henry, and joining me as usual are Andy, Matt, and Rich. And tonight we're also joined by our special guest, Mike. How you doing, chaps?
Nice to see everyone.
Good.
All good.
Right.
I'm very well.
Feeling good. Feeling pumped. Sorry I missed the last episode. It was excellent. I thought 2A is a bit of a legend.
We held the fort, didn't we?
He's in the chat.
I didn't swear too much.
Yeah,
I didn't swear too much.
Yeah, bar's pretty low for that one though. Let's be honest, isn't it? Depends.
That's true.
Depends how sourced up come in. So no more waffle. We're going to have quite a short what's caught our eye over the last couple of weeks because we want to have a nice chunky main section chatting to Mike. There was one thing that caught all of our eyes. I think that like the day after the last podcast or something, and it was just bang in the WhatsApp chat. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Yes, it's going to be the pick. It's going to be the pick. And it's a model that we featured several times before. And it's a paint that we featured a couple of times before. But this was one of those, like, the rays come through the clouds, the angelic music came out. And it was one of those, where were you when you first saw this miniature or this paint job? So enough sort of blowing smoke up his arse. Let's have a look, Matt. Ta-da!
It's quite good.
Yeah, there we go. It's the perfect goblin.
It's not bad.
No one has to worry about painting them anymore.
I nearly sent this to my pick actually as well. I was this close as thinking they must have talked about this already. They've got to.
This counts as winning painting, right? So this is no more goblins now. Dave gets to take the goblins home. They're his.
I don't want to paint mine for a bit.
So Cole, why are we so blown away by it? What's so fabulous?
It's just so good. I love the yellow. I don't know what they call it, like the cloth thing that they have underneath.
It's my favourite part as well. It's my favourite part. Yeah.
This little balaclava thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the tone and the colour on the disc armour. I think it just looks.
Natural.
Just like the way the tone changes so well. You see the real like curvature of the body. I think it's just brilliant. And the shield as well. The way the wood gets darker towards the edge. It's just every element of it. The detail is just next level. There's no focal point. The whole thing, you could take a snapshot of each little individual segment of it and be like, "Fuck, that whole thing is just bang on."
It's just it's tied together so well. The whole thing, like the color palette across every single piece of it works together. All those little bits of reflected light in the helmet and in the armor, and his kind of grasp and use of color is just absolutely incredible. It really is on everything he does. Everything I see of his, it's always what draws me to it. Is how tight together the whole thing is. It's mind blowing.
I always admire, and I've said it before, Dave's ability of knowing when to hold back on stuff. And you look at anything he does and it feels very complex, and then actually there's certain areas that are very, very simple, and that's very skillful, and I think quite strong to hold back on certain details, right?
It's a really low rendering, isn't it? There's not that many different colours going on in the whole thing, but it's amazing.
I think I've really enjoyed his write-up about it as well, because he was very open, saying I actually picked the best bits from certain ones, and you can see actually certain like little volumes and reflections or bits he's taken, but he was very open to say, a lot of people painted this, I took influence and put it all together, and it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice as well having the little nod, because obviously the shield motif is a very, very old Games Workshop or Citadel design, right? But it's kind of nice that it's almost become synonymous with fantasy, orcs and goblins. Even though this isn't clearly isn't a Citadel goblin, Warhammer goblin, it's something else. I kind of like. Yeah, I just kind of like. But it will be
still not, isn't it?
but the goblin very much isn't, is it? Like the sculpt itself is I would say, it's not even necessarily that Brian Froud. Like it's
Lucas
very
Pina.
much Lucas's take, right? It's Lucas's classic face, but goblin-fied.
Here's a question: Is it the best Lucas Pina sculpt, or has it received the best paint jobs on a Lucas Pina
It's
sculpt?
been super popular, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that's because it's fantasy? Do you think that's because it's such a classic fantasy trope? Whereas the witches for me are my favourite things he does generally, but maybe they are a little bit more not niche, but maybe they have slightly less mass appeal. Whereas
I find the witches a bit more. They've got a slightly more cartoony element to it.
They're cute. They're not.
Yeah,
they're
a
not,
bit more Disney to them, and I don't mean that negatively, but there's
No.
it's a bit more fairy tale.
Yeah, this for me strikes. It's like it's fantasy, but it's not like really dark, twisted fantasy. Like the goblin isn't all like bent over and all like that kind of thing. It still looks proportioned, and it's really. I think it just strikes a really good balance between realism and obviously high fantasy, which it is. It's not over the top. Just like even like the proportions of the hands to the face and things like that. It fits really well. It's a really good scale, that kind of thing.
It's all just right, isn't it? It's all very
Sculpt
good.
and paint job, right? Both are, brilliant.
Yeah. That's it. That was exactly, I think, what we said when we first. It was that marriage of the paint job and the miniature, like because there's tons of amazingly painted versions of this. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying.
We featured them several times.
Yeah.
But,
It's like the who's who of painting have all had a go at this so far.
Yeah. So maybe that does mean it's the best for whatever value that term has of his sculpts, right? Because we've seen the most people actually get paint on it, not just buy it, but actually get it.
I think I might have got this wrong, but I think this might have been the first one where he hit over 1,000 because he always puts how many he sold. And I might have got that completely wrong, but I think it was like 1,071 or something. And I was like, whoa, well done. He deserves it. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, we'll get Dave on again soon. We had Dave on in the sort of proto version of this podcast, didn't we? Very, very early days when he painted some stuff for our dad.
He's done 3 of ours. I was looking at it the other day. I was like, he's done 3 Cult Paint minis. We need to send him some more.
We do. I think we will be. But yeah, more on that in a later episode. So that was our communal picks, but it would be rude not to give Mike a pick as well as a guest. So
sort of.
I just saw it today actually because I've been thinking about what to send in, and I just love it. I just think it's, for me personally, miniature painting is about story. That's what I want. Whether it's a single figure or it's a diorama or whatever it is, I want to look at it and I want to sort of understand where the creator is coming from, what he's trying to say about it, and that is just, it's just brimming over with story, isn't it? And I see that, and I just want to do some military modelling work. I want to do some Second World War tanks, or
Matt wants to do more bricks, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at this one, and I'm
attention to detail, like the rear shots of it as well. I don't know if you've got those, but like it's just really, it's beautifully done. Even the way the groundwork's done, and it's great. I really love it. Yeah.
Those Greek models.
I'm appreciating the double skin brick wall. That's nice. Nicely tied in.
It looks like it's a real thing, doesn't it? It's not just something that someone's made. It actually looks like a real wall. And that's what I mean about the detail around the other side. There's like a drain pipe, and the way that's like fastened on is absolutely, it just looks spot on. It's great.
It's
I wish
really
my
cool.
studio walls were as well designed as those, to be honest. A bit fucking warmer. Yeah.
I think
lovely, isn't it?
I think what's important and what sort of this one gets for me, and I agree with Mike, and I'm getting much more into, do you know what? I just want stories behind all the minis. But you don't have to do a single figure and then, I need to do a story, enormous diorama. Like, you can do something tight. It doesn't need to be 6 or 7 or loads of models.
Oh, no.
Just adding another makes a huge difference.
Or just one. You can do it with one, right? You can do absolutely just a miniature on a base if it's composed right and you can tell a story with one miniature, absolutely. This is great with two, but it's just, or even just, a single figure painted, the way that it's painted, the way that the weathering's done or something, that can tell a story too. But yeah, obviously there's a really strong narrative to this one. It says it all. But yeah, to me, that's, I love that stuff. It's great.
It's like what we were chatting about a few minutes ago before we come on air, like the seeing other techniques from other styles of painting used in Warhammer settings.
Yeah.
There's just something about it that becomes, I think a lot of us come at the hobby via this, which is what we're going to chat to you quite a lot about tonight. But I love that it's drawing in the other stuff like more and more now. It's not unusual to see this sort of thing now. Whereas 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever it was when we first saw the Krieg models from Forge World, that was very, very niche still. Like, it was a huge range. They were very well-loved books, and you could tell they'd been put together by people who really cared, but they weren't being seen unless you went looking for them, right? Whereas now, it just feels like, it's just so good seeing the different techniques brought in and mixed together too, right?
Yeah. If you took those Krieg off and you put like a historical model on that, you could take the Krieg off and put a historical model on that. Yeah,
absolutely. Right. It'd look right, wouldn't it? Yeah.
But I think it's something as well that we're seeing in miniatures design now, larger scale, obviously, but particularly Games Workshop with their modern plastics, is the character and the story they're able to put into the sculpts, right? And what they're able to execute now, compared to in the past when we used to get the really dynamic artwork, but then the model might perhaps be a little bit more one plane of existence kind of thing.
Constrained by the production process. Yeah. Right? That's always been the thing, hasn't it? And with the plastics now, they've just broken out of that. That just doesn't, it's not a thing for them anymore. And that's amazing to see, the way the plastics have changed over the last, the history of Games Workshop. It's right. I mean, who remembers the original drastic plastic sets that done, right? I mean, it's not that long ago, right? I mean, it's 30 years, obviously, but a little bit more. But look where they are now. It's unbelievable.
Well, today I built Elrond, and it's the most blown away in a long time I've been by a Games Workshop kit. I was genuinely like, right, I need to find out who designed it and say, this is maybe my favorite design Games Workshop kit. I was blown away by that build. It's amazing.
Yeah, so clever. They're so clever the way that the way they construct and the way they go together. Yeah, it's artwork. Bring it all in house, having control of the whole process has been amazing for them.
And we're reaping the benefits, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we were saying you're getting to that point where your squad of 10 whatevers are 10 character level models now, and it's a little bit intimidating sometimes. But also, I can't think I was talking to the other day. We were talking about the Kill Team releases and things like that, and Necromunda releases, and sort of looking at these kits, going, these are incredible models, and they are for a niche faction in a niche game by this manufacturer, but they are so good. But I love that it's not just the flagship stuff that is, out there that's sort of jaw dropping. It's even the little niche stuff. So yeah,
I'll say the niche is better, to be honest. I mean, the flagship's not doing it for me at the moment. But
I don't know, man. But look at things like that. I keep coming back to it. That Undead release last year, like.
But is Undead flagship?
Outright. Well, it's Warhammer Fantasy, right? That's what I mean by it. Like it's huge. Like it's what if it's not flagship? What is 40k?
Well, I just mean
Spice Miners.
Primaris are in a bad place. Space Marines are in a bad place right now, in my opinion. All right.
I knew that's what you were getting at. I knew it.
Space Marines are not working, but there's, Warcry is unbelievable.
That was it. It was the Warcry. That's what we were chatting about, saying like, this faction that is not going to be a popular faction, yet still is 12 incredible miniatures. But anyway, great picks. Let's crack on with the main section. So we reached out to Mike a little while ago to ask if he fancied coming on after we noticed you sort of poke poked your head up again on Instagram and thought, oh, I quite enjoyed that miniatures painting. I might do a bit more of that.
You right? You knew.
And then we were like, it's like Matt, message Mike. And yeah, he very kindly came on. So for anybody out there who's wondering why we've asked Mike to come on, if you were a war gamer in the sort of 90s, particularly, the chances are you were into Games Workshop stuff. And Mike essentially set the bar and created a whole host of educational material, and professionalized the heavy metal studio. Would that be fair to say? Like, try to wrangle some cats, right? Yeah, with that. And I think was just on the whole a hugely positive sort of impact on an awful lot of us that got into the hobby in the 90s. But they've also gone on to do an awful lot more as well within the whole sort of sphere. So we're going to have a natter to you about all of that, if that's okay.
Of course it is. Happy to.
And I'm sorry, I'm thumbing through this book while I'm chatting. While I was looking at them.
Oh, wow.
But this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So when I say educational material, these wonderful old painting guides, there's something in there about chopping one of the models up to move it so it's not all on one axis or whatever.
Well, I mean, the modelling guide, which was, I think it was the second one I did in that series, I think, or the third, can't remember which order I did them in now. That's my favourite, and that's all about really converting and doing all that. Because that's just, and that was that's when conversion used to be real conversion, when metal and you're breaking saw blades and sticking scalpels in your fingers and things like that.
I still do that now.
Well, we were saying, relatively recently, the way plastics now have evolved, and you're getting all your models in plastic, including your characters, but also how the models go together in sometimes clever and also sometimes ludicrously complicated ways. That sometimes to do your conversion, it's no longer, well, I'll leave that arm off my Space Marine and put a different one on it. It's now, okay, I have to build this whole model like it was my metal one, get the vice out, get the saw out, and work on it like that. But at least it's a bit easier to saw through the plastic than it was
too
through
easy
that.
sometimes.
Yeah, too right. So, Mike, you got into miniatures painting professionally at a rather young age, right?
I did. Yeah, I was. It was in 1987, right. So I was 18.
Right. So that's Rogue. That's before Rogue Trader. That's around Rogue.
So they employed me to work on that.
Right.
So I did a very quick potted history. There was a job in which I remember it being advertised in the back of a White Dwarf magazine for miniature painters. I've never been able to find that advert again since.
I've found a few. I'll send you them.
Here we go. Matt's your man. Like, if you need data,
it would be late 86 or early 87, right?
I've got all scans of them.
Right, I got a letter from John Blanche inviting me for interview, and so I was living at home where I'm living in the Lake District again now. So I just moved down to Nottingham on the back of this interview with John, and then I didn't get the job, and then I was living down there, and the person who got the job actually was Sid. I don't know if any of you guys remember that far back in the history. So
now I did see a picture of Sid today.
Yeah. Long dark hair and
I will say that among the other people, you had the best haircut.
Well, there's a great picture, isn't there, of the original sort of painting studio, and you are rather conspicuous with your lack of long hair and heavy metal beard.
Believe me, on my first day I walked in there when I did get so Sid got that first job that I didn't get, mainly because he was into motorbikes and John Blanche was getting into motorbikes at that time. And but anyway, I got a phone call about 3-4 months later saying we've got 3 weeks work for you if you want it. Because I was on the dole down and living in Loughborough beside Nottingham. So I said, yeah, sure. So I went in for 3 weeks work and didn't leave for 13 years. Never had a contract or anything and just stayed. So yeah, the first day I walked into what was the miniature painting room in Enfield Chambers, which is the original studio in the middle of Nottingham, like real rabbit warren of different offices and places, little cubby holes for people. And so that was the art room. And in there was Tony Ackland sitting right at the ends. and then Dave Andrews, and then Colin Dixon, then Sid. All of them had long hair and or beards. At least two of them were smoking, you know.
Yeah.
And I was 18 and I looked about 14, incredibly fresh. I just went, what have I done? But they were great. They were really lovely after they scoured. It was good.
Oh, that's awesome. So, I mean, that's I don't know. I don't know when to put this question in, but I think I might just ask it at various points when we're in it. Was there any notion, and I think we asked this to Mark Gibbons when he came on, was there any notion when you were in that atmosphere and in that crew and producing these things of what potentially it was you were creating? Because at that time you'd seen Dungeons and Dragons, right, over in America, so you'd seen that, and I guess you'd had the popularity of Tolkien over in the UK, but there wasn't really anything like this. Would that be fair to say?
God, that's really hard to answer. I mean, knock it on a few years, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, when things started to grow in the 90s, but in the late 80s and like early 87, May 87, I started. The studio had only been going in Nottingham for, oh God, I'd have to look back through White Dwarfs, but certainly less than a year. Sometime in 86,
right.
You know, White Dwarf moved up from London up to Nottingham and the studio. So it was incredibly early days. I mean, there was not that many people working in the studio then. They kind of staffed up very, very quickly. But what it did feel is very exciting and dynamic to be a part of.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't have any awareness. I mean, I was just mainly incredibly excited to be getting White Dwarf every month and seeing my work in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like it was a massive deal because White Dwarf was the only place you could go to and see pictures of painted miniatures because there's no internet, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So the Citadel journals and compendiums, and then increasingly White Dwarf. That's the only place you ever saw painted minis. You know, I didn't live anywhere near a Games Workshop shop. There weren't that many of them in those days, anyway. So it was this really sort of niche thing, and you know, it was really exciting to be there. And
But it was like that, wasn't it? I mean, certainly my first stint in the hobby, the internet was around by the end of it. There was a web store, a very basic web store. But again, the only real way of seeing painted models was White Dwarf. The journal in black and white, so it didn't really work. It's good for conversions. But yeah, so I think that's why I said these guides that we got on White Dwarfs and the codexes and the army books were so important and so formative, right, to us as hobbyists. And I guess that's what it's. Did you ever feel that pressure with it then as it developed? Like, or it wasn't? It was just in the machine, and it was, you know, that was.
Yeah, I never felt any pressure at all in my painting. I just felt incredibly fortunate. I always say to people that I just think I was in the right place at the right time. I started when I was 18. I just love painting minis, right? So I got to do it all day long. And so at that time, I was kind of like progressing very quickly in my own painting in the studio and getting to a decent level. And, you know, my work became the work that everyone saw because that's all it was. They didn't have to go, right? It's not like now where you can go online and there's a million amazing painters and inspiration and information everywhere. When people wanted to learn how to paint, they came to White Dwarf, right? I mean, so I was really, really lucky to be in that position.
Absolutely. So you came on board. There's 3 other hairy trolls in this room, and you find your feet and you go, oh, I'm pretty good at this. People seem to like what I'm doing. How does that then evolve into? So we get Rogue Trader, we get Space Hulk, all that kind of stuff's going on, and then there's the 90s, right? Then there's Warhammer 40k second edition. There is Fantasy Battles. There is this. How does the studio then move alongside that to accommodate that?
Yeah, it's interesting, really, because the big transition that happened in the studio was when we moved from Enfield Chambers down onto Castle Boulevard, and that was the time that the management buyout was happening. So Brian was basically kind of selling out to, like, led by Tom Kirby, and you know, so the studio had to be seen as more professional. to attract investors and make it look like it was a legitimate business. It was honestly, around Pinfield Chapel, it was chaos. It really was. There was stairs and little rooms everywhere, and it was such a laugh. I mean, it's a brilliant. I grew up there, really. It's we went to the pub every lunchtime and had a couple of pints, and we were laughing.
Oh, Rich would love that.
It was just not professional, because none of us knew how to be professional, right?
Yeah.
I was 18 years old, and we worked really hard, but it wasn't particularly good for showing investment bankers round. I wouldn't imagine. Not rhyming slang, by the way, but but yeah, it was a chaotic place. So that was the big shift that happened. And so around about that time, a number of different things went on, really. One is that desktop publishing came in. So, we went very, very quickly from having, like, up on the top floor of Enfield Chambers, there was a big layout department. So in those days, all of the pages of all of the products were like basically printed out on these typesetting machines, and stuck down onto pages and then sent off to repro. And then all of a sudden that was all happening on computers. So that allowed them to get rid of that entire department of people pretty much. So that was happening. That kind of coincided, really, just moving down to Castle Boulevard. So all that department kind of got axed, a lot of people. And then also quite a lot of other people in the studio sort of got left behind as well. And that happened with miniature painting too. So when the miniature painting departments, which at that point there's about 5 or 6 of us, Ivan Bartlett and Dale Hurst and Andy Craig, Tim Prow, myself, possibly a couple of other people. But the only people who made that journey down to the new studio was me and Tim. Everyone else got let go, and then it was a kind of a period of like rebuilding. And that was kind of like a lot of the sort of like atmosphere, if you like, and that kind of chaotic, exciting thing changed in some ways. It was still a good place to work, but we all worked in this big sort of like really big open plan room. So we went from being able to hide in our little departments and have fun and have a laugh and stuff to it was very sort of quiet and everyone sort of getting on with their work, and it was still still great and everything. But that sort of coincided with that would have been 91 maybe,
right,
somewhere around about there. Can't be a bit hazy on the exact dates, but so and that was the kind of the start of that sort of like the 90s, the kind of classic 90s period, like the red period.
I was going to say, I didn't want to say the red period, but yeah.
And there's still lots of good things going on, and and it was a period when Games Workshop started, I think, probably started making some real money at that point. They were probably selling a lot more, and they had to make it into a real business, and some of that early chaos was never going to survive that. But yeah. Sorry, I can't remember what you even asked me.
Well, you did. No, that's exactly it, and I wasn't expecting that answer either. Like, but to sort of it's fun to hear about the kind of Wild West starting point.
It's a good word for it.
But it's for me. So I got in around second edition 40k, that sort of era. So whilst I love the old Rogue Trader stuff and the original few Warhammer Fantasy, essentially RPG books. For me, the hobby, as it were, started with that, and it's but it already felt like you were coming into something quite well established. But it's quite interesting to hear that, whilst yes, perhaps the worlds were established to a degree, actually, it almost sounds like a pin was put in. It was like, right, this has got us the funding. Now we need to chart a course or whatever.
I think it's almost like Citadel Miniatures moving into Games Workshop. Do you know what I mean by that? It's kind of like the real proper old Hammer stuff that people really like. Is all of the sort of when people talk about the golden age of Games Workshop, it was really that kind of Citadel Miniatures, very early Games Workshop period, really. And then it's just different. It just changed. It professionalized. A lot more people were employed. There's a lot more retail stores at that point, and
well, so that you're then given the responsibility, as it were, to start producing the painting guides, right? And a lot of the miniatures that we see not just in the army books, and presumably the team is working on that. How long, and I want to get to this, so I'm going to start talking about it early. How long until they went, you're a great painter, go and make dioramas? Because I think for a lot of people, like that is nearly all of my memories, is the dioramas. And again, because again, we didn't have the internet, so it was the double page spread in the whiteboard and just poring over those things and looking at them. But like, that's quite a, you're saying, okay, the company's going a little bit more business-like. Okay, so we've got ranges now, we've got lines to work on, we need to show armies and this, but we also still need that creative one-off type stuff, right?
It's a funny process, that, really, because I think, some of it comes from me just really being a bit burned out with working in the heavy metal team. I really loved it, but it got to the point where I was running the team. I'd been running it for quite a while, and I never really enjoyed that side of things. I was never very good at it, really. I was never, trained in management or any of that sort of stuff, and I wasn't getting any sort of guidance from within. So really, it was me. I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think they just kind of scratched their heads a little bit and said, hell, what we're going to do with Mike now, So I don't know where the idea came from, really, whether it came from me or from them. To start doing dioramas. So when I was doing this, I was separate from the heavy metal department completely.
Right.
Even I was working, there was a little tiny office upstairs. I was working with a guy called Owen Branham, who works for, still works for Workshop for Forge World. I think he's still at Forge World anyway. So I met him the first time I went to America, went to Golden Demon in Baltimore, and we just got on really, really well. And he ended up moving over to England and living in my house at the time. So we're really good mates. So they brought him over. He was desperate to come to England. So they employed him originally building terrain. So he built all these amazing terrain pieces. So we shared a little office, tiny little place up in the top of the building. And I was building dioramas all day and he was building terrain, and it was brilliant. And I was so lucky in a lot of my career, I was so lucky. I could do whatever I wanted. No one ever said, make this diorama. I just went and said, okay, what products are coming out? Okay, we're doing a Lizardman army book, right? I'll do a diorama for Lizardmen then.
Illustria, yeah.
I would go and do research into it. So on that particular one, there it is. My favorite, So that came really from a conversation with Nigel Stillman, who wrote the original Lizardman army list. And Nigel used to do these when he started a new project, Bretonians or Lizardman or whatever. He would go away and create these absolutely amazing armies. Like, they were mind-blowing. They weren't never finished to an amazing standard, but they were so full of inspiration and ideas, right? So he had the idea. It was him who came up with the sort of Aztec theme, Central American look to them. So we had long conversations about artwork and stuff and all of these things. And I just went away and, that's the one for me that, looking at it now, it was so fun to make because it came out exactly how I wanted it to come out.
Nice.
I know a lot of that I went out and bought like books about Aztec and Olmec art and stuff, and all the little panels on the walls I wanted to do. So I ended up making all these little panels and sending them over to Eastwood, where the factory was then, to get them cast up. So all the little face panels and stuff and repeating stuff.
You could buy them, couldn't you?
They actually
they cast them up, didn't they? As little metal.
They did, they're from my originals. Those. Yeah. It was just for me to use, so I got a bag of lead back over all these little things and sort up and cut them up and made them a little mosaics and stuff, and then did all the sort of like paintings on the background, but changed them into lizard men instead of like normal humans, and actually those those conquistador figures that are in there. I don't know if they ever even got released, did they? No. Does anyone know? No, so they were things that Mike and Alan Perry made those. So they're not even part of the ranges, right? And it's it's proof that I got to do exactly what I wanted. And it was brilliant fun. It really was that.
So how long were you doing it?
Because 18 months, a year, something like that. I don't remember exactly.
That's mad. Because it honestly feels like every memory from I think like a lot of nostalgia, right? It feels like it went on for 20 years.
It may have been a little longer than that. Certainly not much longer.
Wow.
So, not much more than that.
Pretty basic questions, obviously, but they've got to be asked because people would be sad if we didn't. Did you have a favourite and now get ready to break everyone's hearts when it isn't their favourite.
Of the dioramas?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm trying to think.
The Lustria one, really,
10,
I think.
10, right.
Yeah, I like them all. I really like them all. The only one that I like now, but it's definitely a case of Type 2 fun, is the Warhammer Quest one.
Oh, my goodness.
Because at the time, it just killed me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I made this decision really sort of early on that I wanted to do this forced perspective thing, thinking, oh, that'd be really cool, make it look much deeper than it is. But it just meant that everything I did inside had to work within this, constraints I'd put on myself. And yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare. So it was about the size of a TV. So I was coming in every day and I was thinking, I'm going mad. Looking at this little television set and making this little. I look at it now and I really like it.
Yeah,
I liked it, a little while after. But at the time, I went mental doing it.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones I always go to find in Warhammer World when you go in the exhibition.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so Tue asked a little bit earlier, do you have any of them, or are they? Because I know many of them are in Warhammer World in the exhibition hall.
Yeah, I don't have any of them. None of them belong to me.
I'm trying to think what ones aren't in there. All the ones that I can think of are there. Like I've seen them.
They've got them all. They're all there. Yeah. The only little diorama with that little tiny assassin one that I made.
Yeah.
That was mine, but I gave that to Jez when I left, so he owns that now.
I'm not sure if the Exodite and Chaplain one.
It is.
Is it? Is that one?
Yeah,
it's just
that's my favorite.
It was like one of our.
Is it?
We were up there recently for a thing, and we got to go around the exhibition with some friends of ours, and one of them, Josh, who's quite a bit younger than me, but still an adult. But he has no idea of this stuff that's gone before. He's grown up with Warhammer, him being able to see painted miniatures on Instagram and things like that. But it was so lovely being able to sort of grab him and sort of point him at this cabinet and go, right, this Warhammer Quest thing, you have no idea how important this is, right? And it's like, oh, it's really cool. I'm like, no.
It's like that meme. It's like, don't talk to me of the old ways, which I was there when they were written, sort of thing.
But it was so nice to see, like, even someone who has come from that hobby generation of being exposed to everything, like just bombarded, can still get value from a classic piece.
That's lovely. That's lovely to hear. Thank you. Yeah, it's really. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm at Golden Demon next week, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them again.
Yeah,
I've seen them for donkey's years. Right, it's been a long time.
Is it weird knowing? When was the last time you were actually at Warhammer World? Have you seen the newest iteration of the exhibition?
No, I left in late '99, right before the millennium, and I've only been back once, and that was I moved to America. Moved back from America in 2007, and a couple of friends came over, and Quentin, the guy, was a really big Games Workshop fan. So we went down there and actually managed to. They showed us around the studio. It was really nice. It was all because it was at that point it was really high security. But Robin Dews, who's my friend. He managed to wangle getting us in, so managed to show him on the studio and went around Warhammer World then. But it was very early in Warhammer World, really.
Okay.
Yeah, when it just used to be a little room, didn't it? The exhibition.
We need to film your reaction.
I was going to say, 'cause I was about to
we need to film your reaction.
I was going to ask you a question, but I'm not. I'm going to wait until we're there at the weekend, and then I'm going to ask you.
Okay, all right.
So,
it's a deal.
It's going to blow your mind. It's honestly so amazing.
Well, whilst we're on Golden Demon, we might as well have a chat. Matt, what's the clock?
Oh, where's it? There you go.
10 days.
I'm early, boys.
10 days to go. And Andy's putting the finishing touches on. Matt is painting his 7,000th brick.
I just can't do it anymore.
Start the models soon, mate. You'll be.
Do you say you were done, Andy?
I'm done. Mate. Yeah. Finished. In fact, I finished. I don't know what time it was. About 6 o'clock today or something.
Oh, right. Nice.
But you are going to enter, Mike, right?
I am. Yeah.
And this is your first time as a punter.
It is. Demon, right? Yeah.
35th anniversary special.
Yeah. No, it's going to be great. I already can't wait for it. Like I was saying to you guys earlier, I worked at so many Golden Demons. From the first one was on my birthday in 1987. And up until the year 2000, in 1999, I was at all of them, and working a judge for many, many years. So, and then after that, I was kind of out of the Games Workshop hobby, still working in the miniatures industry, but not involved in Games Workshop at all. And it was just off my radar. So I just feel like it's something I need to do, really. I want to experience it from the other side of the tables and see what it's like, and be a part of the event. I think it'll just be super fun to do, and
it's a lovely bit of
as well. Everyone that's starting painting again a few months ago and starting an Instagram account. Everyone's been so nice and so kind and so generous to me. And it'd just be nice to go and meet some people that I've been chatting to online and, see their work. And I'm a fan still, I really am. So,
but it's going to be really nice. Like you've mentioned a few names now from the other sides of the business, the creative, like, Nigel Stillman. I think, again, if you were a fan of that era, the Stillmania article about how you collect your army and, you never change it, you laminate it, it's that rings true with a lot of people, and Robin G. I remember Robin did an article on making an epic table, and that was one of the best weekends I ever had with my best mate, was building this epic gaming table, all because of this, again, White Dwarf tutorial.
Right.
These page by page, and I think it's going to be, obviously a lot of those guys have moved on from Games Workshop. We don't have access to the creatives at Games Workshop like we used to do, like the days at Games Day where we could walk around the room and meet the artists and chat to them and sign your little program and all that kind of thing. So I think it will be really lovely for people to be able to get to, and I hope really nice for you to get to see that reaction. Because there's a massive generation of hobbyists that you, as I said, you were the reference point, as it were. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see their reaction. And I say, really nice timing with it being the 35th anniversary of the competition, and this strange situation we've got this year with it being at Warhammer World rather than at a stadium or a convention centre. I think it's going to be a pretty unique experience this year. We've got some more things to talk about next episode about it just before it comes out. We're very excited, and we think you lot will enjoy what we've got to announce with it all. But yeah, let's go back ever so slightly. So go back to the dioramas. You've picked your favourite diorama. We're not being negative, so we haven't talked about your least favourite. One of the other types of articles I remember seeing a lot were when you got to go at a special character. So you've got that classic Tyrion conversion of the standard, right? And then you've got the Green Knight, and you've got characters like that. Was there because obviously, as you said, you went into it as a fan, and you just happened to find yourself, in the driving seat with a lot of it. What were the armies or releases or miniatures that you knew were coming that you were like, I'm having that one? No, that's mine. I'm doing that one. Right?
Yeah.
And did you still have that? Was it? I know you said it became slightly less free and chaotic, but was there still that fanboy in you when you were like, oh my goodness, they're doing a new Mephiston or they're doing a new whatever? Like, I can't wait.
Yeah, well, what you got to remember is, a lot of these characters, they were coming out for the first time, so you kind of know what was coming. Do you know what I mean? It's like the original Tyrion and Teclis, right? And they were absolute game changers at the time. Yeah. Talk about those for ages. They changed my painting, and they changed character miniatures for Games Workshop. So a lot of that stuff was just kind of coming along. But the ones that I always wanted to do generally were the whatever Jez was sculpting. Right, there were definitely notable exceptions, right? The Green Knight, which I've got in my cabinet right here, which I very luckily own that.
Well done.
That was a really big one for me. Because, that was after everyone or most people certainly know that Mike Perry, one of the amazing sculptors, lost his right arm in an accident, and he was a sculptor. So when he taught himself to sculpt with his left arm, he while he's still in hospital, he was starting to draw with his left hand while he was still, So the strength of will and the talent that he had is incredible. And it wasn't his first sculpt that he'd done, but it was his first like proper character miniature, really. So I really wanted to do that one. Felt really important to me. And of course, there's Mark's amazing artwork for that, as well. So.
Right. This like we were saying about Dave's Goblin, like this I'd have been so fucking upset if you hadn't said the Green Knight was your like partly because I was like, Matt, you need to get a slide into the Green Knight. But this thing felt like a really nice mix of the artist and the model. But I'm really glad you mentioned Mark's artwork for it as well. Like that really did feel like the Bretonians were this new. I know they weren't exactly. We did have them originally, but they were getting their proper Warhammer Fantasy Battles release. So they got their army books. We've got this fresh new, fleshed out race for the old world. We've got the Perrys sculpting the majority of it. Who clearly, we know now, especially, but clearly have a huge passion for your more historical.
Oh yeah, that's what they were. Yeah,
type miniatures. We had you painting it, and then we had Mark doing the artwork for it, and it really does feel like one of those
Holy Trinity.
Serendipity, I don't know what the word is, but it did really feel like I'm really glad those people got to do that project. And then I think for me as well, knowing like having Nigel Stillman so invested in Bretonians as well, it just that felt like that whole project just had such weight and momentum and everything behind it. And to sort of be able to point at someone's coming into it and going, so what's Bretonians then? And you just go, bang, there you go, and they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. It's
it was a special thing to do for me personally. I think for everyone involved, really. I think it, like I say, it's the stars align sometimes, don't they?
Right.
And that was one of those times. But I mean, I was, for what you're saying before, I was very lucky, really, that I got to do the things I wanted to do, which is really good. And I got to do them without anyone looking over my shoulder and go, paint it a bit red, paint that bit blue. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I got to completely. People just left me alone, really. I mean, just completely left me alone, which is, again, I'll say it. I was incredibly lucky, but yeah.
Well, that's lovely. I'm unconscious of the time, but I do want to pick up on something you said a minute ago, if you can briefly. What did you mean in the sense of the Tyrion and Teclis models being a real sort of watershed moment for the character design of things?
Well, there's nothing like them before that, and they were important in so many ways, really. I mean, at the time, everyone in Games Workshop was just like, oh my god, basically we can sell these for as much as we want. And they were a $5, right? They sold them for a $5, which at that point was, I'd have to look back and see what normal characters went for, but it was a huge amount more than characters are selling for. But they just could not cast them quick enough.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. And even to the extent that, like, I was chatting to, actually, I've done I probably shouldn't talk about it. I was chatting to John Stallard about something, and he was saying that they decided to put red foam in the blisters, right? Because, to make them stand out on the shelves because they were so amazing and mark them out as special. And someone in accounting was like, well, that's going to cost us like an extra, like 5p per blister or something. And John's like, are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how many of these we're going to sell? But and that was it. That they were the birth of the
classic blister,
high-end character model. Nothing like that before. And to me, they were game changers completely.
And they'd have been some of the first special characters, right? I'm trying to think now. Of what we had, because you'd had the Phoenix Lords and the what's his name, Ragnar and stuff, but they'd have been a similar time for that for fantasy. That's really cool. I hadn't I think we might need to delve into that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy.
Yeah. But yeah, that's I'm just having a look at that Tyrion conversion. Anyway, right. What's next on the question? So we talked about, you've had this hand in in steering the painting and leading the painting for what we saw for the most popular wargaming miniatures brand, and what I think the vast majority of certainly UK or European hobbyists, how they come into miniatures gaming and painting is Warhammer. So we're getting towards the late 90s now, and you all of a sudden we start seeing sculpted by.
Yeah. I mean, that was a really hard decision for me. I mean, basically what happened is I hit a pay ceiling. I went to Robin, who's my boss at the time, the studio manager, and I said, you need to pay me more money. I've been at Games Workshop for a long time now, and I'm getting paid basically bugger all. And they just said they couldn't do it. But so, and I would have been happily staying painting, building dioramas and stuff like that. But to them, it's such a funny thing, right? Because a sculptor makes something that directly makes them money, right? This is how many miniatures has sold, but how much effect does how that miniature is painted have on the sales? That was always my point. Is like, not to blow my own trumpet, but my figures were always popular, right? And they were always high profile, and that must have had an effect. So to me, they maybe should have paid me a bit more. But anyway, that's beside the point. That's why I went into sculpting, and it was really hard, right? And they started at that point. They started like a trainee in-house sculptor program. It was like me and Dave Perry. I think we were the sort of first ones to go through that, and then other people kind of went into it. But when I look at the time, I think I got thrown into it too soon. Right, I was not good enough. They were releasing sculpts of mine, which I really was not proud of at all, and not happy with. And it wasn't until right before I left Games Workshop, like in '99, the very last things I worked on, the very last things I sculpted there, are the only things I look back on with any sort of pride, really. And that was when I was working on some of the Eldar miniatures. And I still look at those. And in fact, my Swooping Hawks are still the ones for sale.
Yeah.
Deeply proud of that. And I know they're going to get updated any day.
No way.
I'll take
I've got
that.
metal ones of them.
I don't know. I wouldn't be too worried about that, mate. Like the rate at which the Eldar get updates, I wouldn't be too stressed.
Oh, really? Right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's a different. I was not a natural sculptor. Some people are really natural sculptors. And I wasn't, and I could do it, and I got better at it, but I liked it, but that's kind of what, in some ways, that's what finished me as a painter, and I do regret that a little bit, because I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to stop painting completely and just really concentrate on this, and I kind of wish I hadn't done that. I kind of wished I'd kept my hand in and kept painting a bit and kept doing stuff.
We've lost your voice, Henry.
Yeah, can't hear
you.
I'm going to ask you a question then that I've been gagging to ask on
Sure,
Henry's
go for it.
So you basically did the original Horus, right? We've recently got that new one, and I just wanted to know what your reaction was to seeing that new Horus, considering what you did way back then.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, right? It's really the original Adrian Smith one that I made into miniature. That's Horus for me, right? And it always will be. Even compared
for all
to
of us,
color piece, right? Which is incredible, but to me, that original black and white artwork that's the Emperor and Horus.
Yeah.
So I can look at the new one and go, that's a really amazing miniature, but I've got a slight disconnect in my brain from it being Horus.
So what you're saying is your next big diorama, once you've warmed up after a bit, is going to be converting the new Horus model
into that,
and then I'm sure we'll have the Emperor soon enough. So we'll eagerly anticipate.
Right? For a start off, it doesn't need a mace; it needs 2 power clubs.
There we go.
I have thought about it over the years. I've thought about doing another Emperor and Horus diorama, but I just think sometimes you just got to walk away.
Yeah.
Someone else can do that. I want to do other things. I've got a million ideas.
Well, we saw that as well, didn't we? Because Adrian redid that piece of artwork, didn't he? But then Neil Roberts, is it Robertson? Neil Roberts has done the most recent iteration of that duel, that artwork. So again, it was quite nice to have a new artist's take on.
Right, I'm not sure I've seen that actually.
It was on the front cover of Visions of Heresy. Well, I don't know, a couple of years ago now it's come out. But yeah. So anyways, like you say, it's nice to see. It will be nice to see who does it, because Games Workshop certainly seem to be enjoying nostalgia at the moment. We've just seen from that, what's his name?
Just bringing it, right?
Right, yeah, and
yeah,
certainly with the way things are at the moment, nostalgia is a very valuable thing. So yeah, it's good to see. What I was going to say before I kick my mic lead out, because I did want to touch before we have to let you go. I know we've talked an awful lot about your time at Games Workshop, but you've been this significant painter in that company. You've learned the sculpting side of things. You've admitted yourself you're not as happy with that work as you were with your painting work, but you're now fairly well equipped. So you've done both those things, and you've been involved in this company that's become a bit of a monster, over the 13 years or whatever. That then means you leave that place very, very well equipped. Like not many people are going to have that knowledge base coming out of there, right, into what was then this sort of burgeoning, blossoming other brands turning up, right? And you went over to the States, am I right? And you worked with Wizards, you work with what are they called, the War Machine chaps, Privateer Press, and then obviously Studio McVey. Edition was all of that. So as you say, you kind of sad to have stopped the painting to a point, but then what you then went on to do was enormous, really, in the wider context of it.
Yeah, I'm super proud of my career, because I started working for Games Workshop in '87, and I've worked in the miniatures industry, every day since then, right? And I'm still doing it now. It's really it's been my life, right? I left Games Workshop, I went, I worked at Wizards of the Coast. I was one of the partners and the founders of War Machine and Hordes of Privateer Press, which was, big, especially in America. It was huge at that point. It got really big, and then I left that, and art directed, for Upper Deck Entertainment and doing all sorts of stuff, consultancy work, and then set up my own company and did that. And yeah, it's been great. It really has. I still love it as much now as I did 35 years ago or
but
whatever.
It's lovely now that you're, because obviously we've been in this industry now as a business for 5 years or whatever, and it does change your relationship with painting miniatures. But it's nice that you obviously feel in a place now where you're like, right, let's get back to that painting.
Yeah, it's been an absolute revelation to me. It really has, because I love my job. I mean, I'm the miniatures director for Simon Games, company or not these days. It's great. I really love it, and I work with some fantastic people. Like my sculpting team is amazing. They're incredible guys, and the artists are great.
Some just ridiculous ranges of miniatures have come out from them over the years.
Yeah,
and I guess you get to work with artists like Adrian Smith as well.
Yeah,
right? So
I get to work with Adrian and Paul Bonner. Like Paul Pinsky, and it's wonderful. But I don't get to do any hands-on creative work anymore, right? I don't, and I've been missing that for so long. I really have, and it's just like, I've been dying to start painting again, and kind of felt a bit scared to do it, really, in some ways. My eyesight's pretty shot these days, so I have to wear increasingly stronger and stronger glasses.
Have you got the full-on Spec Ops?
I have.
Sexy dogs.
Yeah.
I bought one, but I can't. I'm really struggling with it. So I got some glasses that are kind of like, to fix my old man eyes, but I had the focal range brought in really close.
Yeah.
It's no good using reading glasses because they're too far away, right? But then that wasn't quite strong enough for detail work, so I went and got some much stronger reading glasses, and that can work, kind of slightly magnified but a bit closer, and that works quite well. But
nice.
Yeah, it's been like I was saying before, it's been it's been a bit of an unexpected joy in my life, really, starting the Instagram account.
Yeah.
Because people have been so lovely. They really have. And it's been, I was really quite moved by it. It honestly was, you know. And,
like we say, you've earned it. I think no one's going to argue with that.
So, but I mean, when to kind of experience it from people and, and all I do is go on there and I just waffle on about like old miniatures that I painted years ago. And people seem to really like that. And I'm painting stuff, which is great. I've got a couple of new pieces that I painted in my cabinet here, and I'm entering Golden Demon, and it's
that's going to be probably the final question for that. Then is Golden Demon. That's what's next, right? Are you going to let us know what it is? Is you want it to be a
category at least? What
category?
To be honest with you, I don't know what category it's going to go in. It's a single miniature. It's an ogre, right? I've converted an ogre and it's gone to base, and I can't work out whether that goes in single miniature or large single miniature. So
large.
Is it really? Because it says, I thought that, but it says in the description, this category is for human-sized miniatures, but includes ogres.
I was going to say this.
Depends which ogre.
An ogre is no longer really that big a model in.
It depends which one, right?
Yeah, well, it's not. It's about 45 millimeters tall, 50 millimeters.
Oh, that's small. That's small. Yeah, single.
Okay, all right. Maybe I'll leave the a bit empty on the entry form until I get there and ask him which one I should tick.
Oh, here you go, Darren.
Yeah, Darren's posted on the chat. Yeah.
Single.
Wow.
Single. Okay, cool. Great, thank you.
Who was it? Piers just tuned in to say thanks, Mike, for painting your wood elves. Formative years from New Zealand. Nice. Yeah. Well, we could. I mean, honestly, we could bend your ear for a very long time.
3 more hours.
Yeah.
I'm happy to come on again. I love waffling about this rubbish, so I'm happy to come on again.
Well,
we'll do after Demon.
That would be lovely.
All right.
To catch up with that. But I think hopefully, for those of you that are aware of Mike's work beforehand, I hope that was good fun for reminiscing. But also, I hope those of you that have come into it in the modern era. It's good. It's good that we recognise sort of where we're at with it all. And I say Mike had a big hand in that. So let's close out as usual with a little look at what you lot have been up to. We started the hashtag PaintCultists a couple of years ago now, mainly on Instagram. If you want to expose yourself to tons of different miniatures, brands, styles, painting styles, artists from all over the shop, go and give it a follow. You've got about 14,000 posts on there or something now. It's a wonderful way to waste some time and just scroll through and look at things. And all we do every episode is just pick a few out that caught our eye to have a chat about. Slightly shorter episode tonight, so I've been very restrained and only picked 3. So
3 critters.
3, and then no crit.
There are critters.
See. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that circles way back to what we said at the very beginning about. In fact, it wasn't. It was before I think we even started recording. No, it wasn't. It was your Krieg thing. 2 miniatures on a base, setting a scene. It's been quite fun seeing GW the last few years start introducing like familiars and critters and things. So you start getting that almost on just a single gaming base, don't you? With the cats and the things like that. Anyway, we know that I like critters. So, what's the first one up, Matt? Because I cannot remember it. Oh,
that's cool.
How cool's this?
That is cool.
Just the account was like, I've added some bats. I need to call it done. I think maybe this was one of those projects that possibly was meant to be a bit quicker, and then they fell in love with and knowing when to walk away, right?
It's Recondo on a night out.
That's like me.
That's you on a night out in Bath, is it?
That's Rich in Nottingham on GD. Saturday night. Absolutely smashed.
Pendulum, yeah.
Helmet and sword on ready.
But yeah, I should know the company. I'm sorry, I don't. That sculpted the miniature. I did have it on my phone, but I can't remember. But yeah, just lovely, cool, and nice to see people taking busts and doing a bit of conversion. I know it's only adding some bats in and stuff, but again, I love seeing all the different skill sets from the different types of painting, right? And when people smoosh them together a bit, and we get these beautiful, high quality resin busts of stuff. But I love it when people then tweak them.
Is that the technical term for it? Smooshing them together.
I believe so.
Cool.
I'm by no means a professional, so you'll have to check. But yeah, an angry ginger lad having a bad day. That's
Sounds about right.
I think we can sympathise with that one. What's up next, Matt? I'm trying to find that.
Oh, that's creepy.
And this might be what he's just seen, to be fair. But yeah,
again in Nottingham.
Oh dear.
That's a birdie season pitch and pit
Pendulum.
pendulum.
There we go. It's like your life in miniature, Rich. It's great. It's completely unintentional.
Saturday night out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it struck me just because when we started out with the hashtag, it was 20 Marines and then something that wasn't a Marine, and then 20 more Marines, and then all of a sudden a bust might appear or thing. But now it really is, now it's mainly only like 5 Marines before you see something completely different, and it's just very exciting. I'm slightly distracted because I'm trying to scroll through and find it now so I can tell you where the miniatures are from, because I feel really bad when I don't remember. Akalare Models.
Akela.
That's it.
David Aroba's company.
I was going to say. So there's that one. If you fancy some creepy witch action and can't get to the pit and pendulum. So I think I had one more, did I, Matt?
It's
Oh yeah.
And this
Green
so
Mower
yeah,
song.
we've got Games Workshop are sort of not relaunching, but there's a big push with Lord of the Rings at the minute with them. Some amazing new models coming out from them. Obviously, we've got the TV show as well, and I think it's been really interesting when they make war games, right? So they make miniatures that are usually in the middle of fighting. So I think it's always nice when you see a model from them that is more what's the word I'm looking for, Andy? Just like
every day.
It's just every
A
day.
muggle.
A muggle. You remember ages ago they did a few of those little releases of some of those Empire like citizens, who were just chilling.
They call it men at ease. Is that what they call it?
There you go, men at ease. And Green, this is presumably just before he's about to stab old Saruman in the film, obviously not the book, but we won't talk about that.
Deleted scene as well.
But it's cool, it's just cool. I love that texture on his inner robe.
The face is amazing. The sculpt down paint.
And it's teeny tiny, which obviously it doesn't look in this. But that again is something I'm really looking forward to seeing at Golden Demon. Is I always love the Lord of the Rings section because
it was amazing.
You forget how tiny those models are.
Yeah, I was going to do. I started doing. Well, I have started building the Lord of the Rings diorama for a friend because he's a big Lord of the Rings fan, and I started converting some of the hobbits, and I'm just like, this is insanity. How do you do it? So it's a hobbit, and it's just like it's so tiny.
You can't do that.
No, but they're amazing miniatures. I really love them. Yeah, I've got all sorts of things I want to do with them.
Absolutely, and it does seem to attract a lot of very high-end paint jobs. It feels like to me that category.
It's the best category.
It's not, but it's quite good.
I think I always think of it as well as a little bit like the gateway category into other stuff as well, like others miniatures painting, right? Because it is slightly different. It's. I can't wait. It's going to be so good. So 10 days time, it begins. The 35th anniversary of Golden Demon. And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the next episode's about it, right? We're going to chat about it.
Yeah,
does that sound right?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
It is now. And then we're going to be getting rather a lot of episodes about it in a short space of time, I think, around it. So, I think we're all very much looking forward to that. So, I think it's time to wrap up. So, firstly, thanks, chaps, for joining as ever. Huge thanks, Mike, for coming on.
It's a pleasure. Honestly, thanks for having me on. I've really, really enjoyed it. And like I say, I like waffling about this stuff. So
well, we like listening.
It's not a hardship, honestly.
But and it's lovely to have you back painting.
Thank you.
Painting GW Minis. So it's going to be exciting times. And chat, lovely to see all 200 odd of you, whatever have been in tonight. That's a telling figure as well. Good times. I hope those of you that are heading to GD, you've got at least some paint down on your entries. Don't start panicking yet. I'm fairly sure Rich Gray's probably only just started whatever he's actually going to enter. So
he's starting something new. He did tell me today.
There we go.
On
Right?
Monday. So.
So yeah, don't stress. Don't stress. You'll be fine. But also, we can't wait to see it and share all that work with you. So thanks as always for joining us. If you're watching this back, do the usual like, share, subscribe. It really helps us out. The more people get into it, the more we're able to go to people like Mike and say, do you fancy coming on and waffling a little bit about miniatures? There are people who want to listen to it. So yeah, it's your support that's meant we're able to keep doing all of this. So if you keep doing it, we'll keep doing it. So thanks chaps, and we'll see you soon.
Ciao.
See you.